We are back at PJ's on Airline Drive. Our show is presented by PJ's Coffee. We love it and we appreciate their support, so you guys should go and check them out. They have locations all around Louisiana, and we've got a pretty stacked show for the off season. A lot of social media buzz. I think this should probably be the title of this episode. Demario Davis Hall of Fame potential. Do we believe it? Do we not? Why is Marshawn Lattimore not in the top 6? Cornerback conversation right now. And we get into some of the articles that are being posted on our website and some new website features that you should be on the lookout for.
And the countdown for training camp
Yes.
is on, so you can start your day every day by pulling a number off your calendar, knowing that it is about to be into the single digits, and also start it with a cup of PJ's Coffee. As Brooke said, best coffee in all of America, locations all over the city, so make sure you go and check them out. And we are coming to you from the Better Call BADEAUX podcast studio, but normally we are there when we are not at PJ's. And of course, when you're going to PJ's, jump in your Chevy, Ford, whatever Matt Bowers is selling, because that is the best place to go buy a car. Matt will take care of you. He will get you in and out of there. I buy all my cars from him, and you should too. So if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, Maritime Jones Act, hurricane and storm claims, you better call BADEAUX at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And if you are of legal drinking age, go get yourself a bottle of Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries blended in New Orleans. It is not for the thin skin. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. And go check out Ideal Market, home of the freshest produce in the city. They do great stuff in the community, so much so that they won the Peter J. Larkin Award from the National Grocers Association for outstanding community support. They always bring the best quality food products at the best prices, and they are the home of the largest variety of Hispanic and international foods you will find in the state. They have a hot deli that surpasses many restaurants in the flavor of their authentic Hispanic dishes, and it is also the best place to cash checks, wire money, pay bills, and they have a complete customer service department like no other. And make sure you go check out Firehouse Subs, Veteran Boulevard location. Great people that do great stuff for the community. And be on the lookout for the New Orleans Football Citrus Blitz drop coming soon from Urban South. That drink will be in their location very soon. Stay tuned for updates on that. All right, let's get into the show.
We promised you guys that we would talk about the Demario Davis buzz that is kind of going off around on social media. Now, he was a Pro Bowler back in 2022. He made first team All-Pro in 2019. He made All-Pro as a 30-year-old. So the reason why we bring this up is he making a case to be a potential Hall of Famer? Now, we already did this show a couple of weeks ago on one of our shows, Hall of Fame potential with the Saints. Did we leave him out? And also, too, can he keep this elite level of play that we've seen over the span of the last 4 years?
That's probably why we left him out.
Yeah.
Because his peak is absolutely Hall of Fame level peak. He's a deserved first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro. The Pro Bowl was way overdue. You know, for a 5-year span, I think everybody has agreed he's been among the elites at his position. But he kind of started that too late. So he will have to keep doing it till he's 40 to have that kind of resume. We talked on that episode about how they love how many first-team All-Pros did you have, how many Pro Bowls did you have. Now, Nick said he doesn't like that because of who's voting on it. But that's how they distinguish him. I was looking at total career tackles, which I thought was interesting. And they only kept this stat since 1994. And he's 43rd with 744 tackles. 3 more seasons he could be in the top 5 or 10 with 1,100 tackles. But this is a weird position. London Fletcher is second all-time with almost 1,400 tackles. He's not in. Donnie Edwards, who was a safety, Keith Brooking, Carlos Dansby, they're all in the top 7. They're not in. I think the only way they put linebackers in is if you were like a 5-team, first-team All-Pro. And I think the clock is working against him, even though everything – we can't put enough accolades on what he's done in the second half of his career so far.
Yeah, you make a good point. You know, some people start out at the coffee shop. Others got to go to the warehouse first and find their way to the coffee shop. Demario's career, you know, he was at the warehouse and he found his way to the coffee shop. If his career had been flipped the other direction,
right.
I wonder if there would have been like the back end where it's kind of like, you know, you start at this high point and then you kind of go and your reputation is what it is, and then people notice what you're doing a little bit more. the biggest thing working against him, though, is he exists in an NFL where Bobby Wagner exists. And
Luke Kuechly before him, too.
Yeah, the standard is just, sustained excellence. But, yeah, I think his peak is as good as anybody's peak. It's just took a little bit too long to get there. But if he can Benjamin Button this a little bit longer and just keep getting more and more, years.
He is the kind of guy who
maybe
will probably go to like 3 more Pro Bowls and get like 2 or 3 more second-team All-Pros, even when maybe he's not playing as well as he was before people started to notice him for that reason.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for him, though. I do.
Yeah, no, I hear you with the subtle jab. Look, I think Demario Davis probably put in the right address and arrived.
They didn't have ways,
but he
when
still
he
has
started
ways
his
to
career.
go. Yes.
But they got ways now, and some people just can't find their
all
ways.
right.
So I don't know.
Let me ask you guys this. So he had, as far as trending up and staying on time and with his age, can he continue to get to that peak or even, I think, have a baseline of, okay, what he did last year, if he can continue to do that over the last 4 or 5 years. He had the most sacks in his career last year with 6.5 sacks. I think that is a notable stat. I even sent Nick on social media the other day, I believe. Demario Davis has a new workout program this summer. I remember when he came out with the water workouts and how that elevated his game to another level. Maybe this is him finding another way to reach another gear.
His pass rushing is really it is elite. It's one of the things that he does really well, and it kind of fell back a little bit last year, even though he had great numbers. But they were using other guys in that role. Caden Ellis was getting some of those opportunities, so that might shift back a little bit too, and he might get more opportunities to blitz, just given what they maybe don't have on the edge in their pass rush. So they might have to lean on the linebackers again. They might scheme more of that up. So maybe those numbers even go up a little bit this year. But the way he flows as a pass rusher, as a blitzer, I think it fits really, really well in what the Saints do on their defense. It's one of the things that stands out. I think he's still top tier downhill. It's kind of the sideline to sideline stuff. If you're looking for maybe some of the aging stuff that's happened with him, I think maybe that's where it shows up just a touch. But he is so smart that I think he's going to be able to stay ahead of it. Yeah. He's going to keep finding ways to just make it disguised, make it camouflage. But at some point, there probably is going to come a season where it's just like, oh, wow. And I think that's what he's going to be able to do. I think he's going to be able to sustain and hide it until he just can't. And that's how we're going to see him age. I don't think it's going to be a slow drop-off. I think it's just going to be, okay, I can hide it, I can hide it, I can hide it, I can't.
I don't know if I agree with the last part about it being a slow drop-off, because the thing I do like about seeing the highest sack total last year is he feels like he'll figure out where he can contribute.
I said it won't be a slow. I think he'll hide it until he can't.
No, but I'm saying I think it will be a slow drop-off. I think he's the kind of guy who can become a 30 snaps a game guy if he has to be, or like there will always be something he can do well. If he's no longer the every down player, I feel like he's one of those guys that can contribute in some fashion. If you can't drop him back in coverage anymore, then they'll figure out a way to make him a package player or something. But I just like that he doesn't rely on one trick. That his coverage was something that took a long time to develop. It got really good, but if that does drop off, he's developing more as a blitzer. I just like the idea. His quarterback hurries, his pass defenses. He's just like 5 or 6 in everything, So I do like the idea that he's smart enough to figure out how he still fits. But you're right. I mean, he has already defied expectations about when the drop-off is supposed to occur. So at some point, he's going to act his age. And
I mean, like within the context of his role, though. Like I think he's going to be able to. I don't think it's going to be evident. I think when it's just like, okay, he can't do this anymore, because I think his intelligence is just so high that he's going to be able to make up for a lot with his instincts, and then there's just going to come a point where it's like, oh, he can't get to the sideline anymore, and that's going to be it.
Let me pose this a little differently. So based on what we've seen the Saints and how they run their defense, and Dennis Allen kind of changing things and kind of changing the way defenses are in the last few years in the NFL with that nickel corner and only having 2 linebackers in instead of 3, does that help or hurt him as far as continuing to reach that Hall of Fame potential, as far as what his role is when you just have the 2 linebackers instead of the 3 that are in?
Well, I mean, it's not a position like defensive line where you rotate in and out. I mean, until that drop-off occurs, he's probably going to continue to get his 70 snaps a game or something, so that'll help him compile statistics. And it's not a position where it's constantly guys shuffling on and off the field. But that the flip side is if he gets replaced by somebody that's an every down player, then there aren't a lot of snaps. You can't come in at that position and play 22 snaps a game and get 8 sacks in a season. You kind of need to be in full-time player.
Yeah, I mean, the way the league has just gone since, I don't know, 2007, Wes Welker, the teams on offense go to more what they call nickel offenses with 3 receivers. That kind of dictated that. And just over the years, it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And, like, the downhill linebackers, like a Brandon Spikes type player, like, they don't fit in this NFL anymore. So you do have to be smaller. You got to be rangier. You got to be able to cover a lot of ground. And I do think that at some point, though, we're going to see an evolution back toward heavier offenses, because as the defenses get lighter and you have 210, 220-pound linebackers, at some point, like, you're going to be able to just pound the hell out of these people with bigger running backs. And I think some of that's going to start coming back, and it's going to be an ebb and flow. But the way the league is played right now, it is a passing league. And I do think that, that does dictate you need more range than you used to maybe need to have in 1988 or whatever it was, when it was just kind of smash mouth football. Like, that just isn't the NFL anymore.
But we did see, the NFL draft, how many running backs went in this year's NFL draft. So who knows? It might be the NFL is always going to continue to evolve as offenses have figured out defenses and vice versa. Things are going to just continue.
Well, it's a play action league now
right.
too. So it just is a little bit kind of going back toward a little more quality in the running game, a little more value there. But I do think that it is a passing league, and that's going to be a part of it for at least the rest of Demario's career, for sure.
All right, let's get to our moment presented by New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. What is the moment we are most looking forward to in training camp?
Day one, when they go back out there and there's actual stuff to do, just the start of it, people being back around real football. I can't pick. Like, you're asking me to, like, choose between, like, my favorite children. Like, I just can't. I can't do it. Like, it's just like there's just so many things I want to see. Like, I'm excited about all of it. Like, I'm counting down the days. What are 11 days away from the start of camp?
What's your moment? You got to go with one. Putting you on the spot.
All right, my one moment. Well, I know yours. I don't want to steal yours.
You can. Well, we talked about it before the show, because
Go ahead.
it
Say
is
yours now while Nick keeps hemming and hawing.
Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
How can it not be? Obviously with training camp, and we would be foolish to say that there's only one thing we're looking at. The NFL is just not that simple of a game. So, of course, it's going to be multiple things. But the reason why Michael Thomas is the moment is because he is one of those game-changing players. And when he's in and he's healthy, he takes this game's win total up, in my opinion. So if he comes back and he's healthy, and he is the Michael Thomas that everybody's used to, that was the quote he used. I believe that was after OTAs when he surprised us all. Or, I'm sorry, not... Was it OTAs or minicamp? OTAs when he rolled out.
The second week OTAs we saw him for the first time. And you're right.
And that's
the
what he
other
said,
89 players faded into the background when he showed up. You're right.
Yeah, and he made that comment that I will be back to my old self in training camp. And those are strong words to use, especially given all that he's been through and all the injuries and time he's missed.
I think my moment will be the first day of one-on-ones, when we can see what Trevor Penning has actually learned.
You're talking...
Pass rush one-on-ones. Yeah. We can see what Trevor Penning is his learn. We can see what Isaiah Foskey is going to be, see if Peyton Turner is going to be anything, evaluate Kalen Saunders in a Saints uniform, Nathan Shepard. I think there's just a lot there that we're going to be able to learn. And then that's just always a good thing to see, too, because it's isolated. It's not necessarily real, because you can't, like, block your help or anything, but you can see what guys are doing, how they're stacking moves, and decisive victories do mean something in that setting. So I think that's the main thing I'm looking for, because I think that's where my biggest questions are with the team, is, both those lines.
Yeah, I have two things written down here. And one is the first, I said padded joint practices too. Brzee, Turner, Foskey. They're the guys we don't have any information on right now. And we haven't been able to. You can't really evaluate those guys in OTAs. You can evaluate them in one-on-ones, which I almost picked, or padded practices against the other team. I have no real strong opinions on Brzee and Foskey, the rookies this year. Peyton Turner going into year 3. I can't wait till there's something tangible I can evaluate with those other guys. But the one I had written on top of it, when you said one-on-ones, I thought this is what you're going to say. Olave versus Marshawn. We're going to watch every time they go up against each other. Potentially the two most talented players on the, Michael Thomas is more talented, Alvin Kamara, things like that. But Olave and Marshawn kind of at their peak performance. I want to watch every snap they take against each other.
One of the things I love the most about going into this camp is it's not really like who's going to make the team, it's who's going to be winning roles, who's going to be doing things, and that kind of speaks to the quality of the team a little bit. I'm kind of like low-key, quietly at home, like looking at my win total, and it's just like should I go higher? Like, it just feels like things are kind of breaking their direction, and I'm talking myself into liking where they're at more and more. I'm going to hold steady at 10 publicly, but like privately, I think I got a little bit of a different number.
Yeah, and for what Mike was talking about in mini camp and OTAs, they actually moved the defensive line kind of out of our line of sight unless you had binoculars, and I believe sometimes they even moved them into the indoor. So credit to the Saints, they helped the TV people out and actually sent us their own video of the defensive line. But that's really, we did not, when you look at the grand scheme of things and the whole entire team and everything that we got to see outside of just stretching, we really did not get to watch them at all.
We've been talked a couple times about, I think we said before a couple OTAs, what are you going to focus on? And I even said, I think 2 different times, I want to see Brzee and Foskey and Peyton Turner. And even when I made a concerted effort and looked through the binoculars and said, I'm watching them, they're not doing anything yet. That's a position that, and we saw very few team snaps in OTAs and minicamp, and they each had, Turner and Brzee both had nice moments with the first string, but like one play. Like, I want to see 40 plays from these guys. I really need to evaluate them. And the receivers and the DBs, you can see in every part of practice. You can see them in one-on-ones. You can see them in 7-on-7s. You can see them in team. You can see them in their own position drills where it's just them going against coaches. But the defensive linemen you can only see when it's real, real.
Yeah, and those are actually real because you can't touch anybody on defense. So like what's happening in shorts is like that's actually what's going to happen in the game.
And if there's anything we've learned from training camp over the years, the moment will change. How many times have a Chris Olave or a Marshawn Lattimore or whoever else in one-on-one steps up and kind of takes that moment away?
Yeah, everything's
pretty
a moment.
often.
Everything's a moment for me. It's in the notebooks on the website. They're all meaningful moments.
And with our you could talk a little bit too about what we're going to be launching with the live updates, and people can see those things when we are allowed to post, when we get the clear window on training camp, what fans can expect.
Yeah, no, we're just going to changing up the website. Everything you need is going to be on there. You can circumvent social media if you want to. If Twitter crashes, we'll have something new. And we got it up there now, but it's going to be changing too. We have a whole thing coming out, a new update soon on the website that's, I think, like kind of low-key having like our own internal social media network that's going to be on the website. So for $9 a month, you get everything. So, yeah.
And there's been a lot of buzz. You mentioned social media. There's been a lot of buzz about top cornerbacks in the NFL right now. We'll get to that right after the break.
Now, at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company, get our $10.99 shrimp remoulade combos with zesty shrimp remoulade and fried shrimp or catfish for only $10.99. And did you hear? Soft-shelled crabs are back at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
So the NFL put out this tweet saying, so who's the best cornerback in the league? And I think they're talking about current players, not cornerbacks all time. Here's on this list: Patrick Surtain, Jalen Ramsey, Sauce Gardner, Tariq Woolen, Darius Slay, and Jair Alexander. I'm comfortable with a lot of the guys on the list being in the top 6, but how on earth you don't have Marshawn Lattimore in this top 6 to me stands out. I'm not trying to say he's the best cornerback right now in the league, but don't you think that's a fair assessment?
His absence is noticeable because he belongs in that tier, but pick the 6, somebody's getting left out. So ESPN did this, they survey GMs, coaches, executives every year. I thought that tweet was based off it, but they had one different. They didn't have Tariq Woolen, they had Marlon Humphrey. And Marshawn Lattimore was 7th on that list.
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey not being on the list is surprising too.
These are good names.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fair, Marshawn Lattimore deserves to be on it, but they all deserve to be on it. What was interesting to me about that list of the ESPN, the survey is, they said Marshawn Lattimore's highest ranking was number 1. So at least one person had him number 1. And last year he was number 2 overall on the same list. So what have you done for me lately? The guy missed 9 games last year.
Who's number 1 on the ESPN list? Do we know?
It was I think Surtain passed Sauce Gardner.
Okay.
And they said it was close between those two.
Look, my thing is I feel like it's a little early for a couple of these people.
Yeah, especially Woolen. Yeah.
Cornerback's one of those positions where the sample size is so small that you can kind of ride high in the tree a little bit, and then a year later, Ken Crawley's a good example of that. 2017, he's looking like he turned the corner. He broke out. His coverage is great. Oh, if he adds 3 interceptions, his quarterback rating against is 67 or whatever it is. And then it's like, oh, but what if he gives up 3 more bombs and he doesn't have a job anymore? And that's kind of how it goes.
You got to stand the test of time to be.
I'm not taking anything away from Sauce or Woolen but it's just Marshawn's been doing it for 7 years.
And he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. I mean, you don't just get those awarded to you for nothing. And it's 4-time Pro Bowler.
Without question.
He doesn't need to be anywhere on the list. He just needs to be, if you have a list, he needs to be on your list.
Yeah,
I don't care where you put him. It's just make sure you're acknowledging his existence. And having a couple of these
The other thing that
guys.
was interesting about that ESPN poll, his lowest ranking was 10th. So I don't remember the total of people they polled. Everyone had him in their top 10. Everyone should have him in their top 10. But I also think he had a down year last year. He missed more than half the season with an injury, and these things are always, what have you done for me lately? Somebody had him one. You can't disagree with either. You can't disagree with 7th or 1st, but it should probably be closer to 1st than 7th.
Yeah,
I think even in that injury, though, even when he came back from it, he hasn't proved that he deserves to be off the list.
Right.
I mean,
came back really strong. He won that Eagles game.
And it was a very severe injury, a lacerated kidney.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something you cannot play around with as far as your health after football.
You know what I thought was really interesting about this poll and that graphic, though? Pat Surtain. I mean, it's not quite the Mahomes. The Saints were 1 pick away from drafting Mahomes, but we remember that they had the 27th pick or the 28th pick that year, and they were trying to trade into the top 10 for either Pat Surtain or J.C. Horn that day, and they couldn't pull it off. They ultimately couldn't move up 20 spots. Typical Saints. They're like, we don't want to sit here at 28th. We want to move up 20 spots. But a lot of people mock that. And they're like, oh, typical Mickey Loomis Saints. Just sit where you are. Bill Belichick always sits where he is. Or you know what I mean? Well, they drafted Peyton Turner that year. And, look, it's possible these two names are just two random names. But that is an example that would have absolutely been worth moving up 20 spots for Pat Surtain. Like, sometimes being aggressive is the right move. They had the right guy targeted.
Look, I think the alternate universe, too, with, the no Marcus Davenport trade is that they probably end up with Jair Alexander. I think that's a very likely thing. It was a need. He was someone they liked. I think that's definitely something that could have happened as well. So it's just kind of the Saints, under Sean Payton, were the biggest what if.
Yeah,
and
so close.
And it was just because part of that's because he was so loud about everything he did. You knew every person he was trying to get. There were a few guys that they targeted. It's just Sean's calling him while he's on a visit to another team. And it's well, how did they know that? Well, I wonder how they knew that. It's just everything he did was out in the open, and he was just so into what he was doing that everybody knew it all the time. And that just leads to a lot of these what if situations.
Yeah.
A lot of teams don't have golfers in their draft room to tell you who they were going to draft. I mean, it's just not something that's coming out everywhere.
This is one of those polls, though, where I would love to hear from guys in the league. Get them all into a room and
Brooke,
say...
it's a cornerback poll. I think we've probably heard from all 6 and 14 who weren't on it, probably, if you just check their mentions.
Yeah, oh, well, I know.
It's a position that is not shy.
No. Well, C.J. Gardner-Johnson did make some noise about it. Him and Sauce Gardner went back and forth. I'm sure you can go and find that if you were not in the spaces. It was something.
Yeah, it was definitely
something to listen to. But
it was something.
My thing is, get them in a room and have them actually talk about it. That's what I would be interested to hear is pound for pound, actually talk about it. Don't just be on Twitter and social media or even on a phone call. But
the most interesting thing about this, cornerback, it was the Darrelle Revis and Asante Samuel argument that played out on social too over Sauce Gardner, and it's just I don't know. These guys just get worked up about all this stuff, and Revis was just kind of what's going on here. But Asante Samuel was he had strong opinions too. He didn't think Sauce should be that high up on the list. He thought Surtain was the top guy, but. I don't know. It's just a lot of opinions on these lists. It's a July 14th thing that I think is just kind of people just need the real football to come.
I know
real
they
quick.
need somebody else to hit. That's not a teammate at this point, but who knows? We will see. You guys actually have been pretty active too with your articles and what you guys have been putting out.
Summer long.
Never stops. No off season here at NewOrleans.Football. Tell us a little bit about Taysom Hill and what you were writing about.
Well, yeah, he talked on the last day of mini camp, and it's interesting. I mean, especially in the wake of finding out that Alvin Kamara might serve a lesser suspension. We don't know for sure that he'll serve less than 6 games, but we've talked so much about how can Taysom Hill, they figured out how to use him in the running game, I think, better than ever. If anything, I think they used him not enough last year with only 96 carries, and he had 575 rushing yards. But now they've got Kendre Miller. Now they've got Jamal Williams. So can Taysom Hill actually get that many carries still? And if not, where are they going to use him? He wants it to be in the passing game. I mean, they made him a tight end last year, and then they only threw to him 7 times all season or 9 times all season. I don't think that's the best use of him, but I do think he needs to be used. And what was interesting when I talked to Pete Carmichael was Pete Carmichael said, we are going to continue using him in the role that we used him in last year. We were happy with the results of that. But I need to do a better job of, I have Taysom Hill on the field right now. I should be designing some plays where we're getting the ball to him. Doesn't mean he's going to catch 50 balls, but why not 15 for a start or 20 on a design play? I mean, Derek Carr said, if you get him the ball, I like his yards after the catch ability. He said he's faster than my truck or whatever. Derek Carr has a line for everything. And he said, I can envision ways to get him the ball and some open space, and then who's going to stop him once he gets a full head of steam? So it's not going to be a huge part of his role, but they need more of a role for him.
I think I have that. If I was the coach of the team, here's how I would use Taysom. I would get rid of the fullback. I would make Taysom the H-back.
Sure.
He can block. He can run. He can just kind of be your X-factor player back there. If he's your fullback, you're keeping a linebacker on the field, so he's going to get defended by him. You can maybe open some things up. That's how I would use him. And I don't know. I feel like that's the ideal use of him is in that role. But
yeah, like how about Josh Hill? Remember, Sean Payton used to call him the front door. He said Josh Hill is a part of everything we do. Why isn't Taysom Hill a part of everything they do? Even if it doesn't mean he's getting touches, the threat of him getting touches is
that your ideal situation for Taysom Hill presented by Ideal Market?
I think so. I mean, I would love to say that my ideal result for Taysom Hill is he gets 100 carries.
Okay.
He had 96 carries last year, 7 touchdowns. I mean, the ratio is incredible, and he averaged 6 yards a carry. I would think, you should do more of that until they prove they can stop it. But I don't know how I can get him 100 rushing touches. So sign me up for that role.
I just think something where he's not telegraphing, and he succeeds despite you kind of knowing what he's going to do. And there have been tells with the things he does on the field. Like, there was a whole season where he lined up when he was under center and they would give him the ball and he was throwing the ball. He would put his mouth guard in his mouth, and when he was running it, he would tuck it into the side of his helmet. Yeah, and you could tell every single.
You showed me that.
Yeah. Well, I showed more than just you that, but that's what he was doing with it, and you could just tell what he was doing. So just have him on the field in a role. And I think if you use him as an H-back, he could just be out there and not be part of everything and get a lot of snaps, and it would just make it harder and harder and harder to defend him. And with all the weaponry they have, if you can just force that and have it, we need a linebacker out there because he's going to block. He's going to be the lead blocker. And if that's what he's doing a lot, then you can work off that and maybe create a mismatch, and I think it becomes a little bit easier.
The other really interesting thing from our conversation with Taysom Hill, these are the kind of things we talk about with other players sometimes, but so last year he missed the entire offseason recovering from Liz Frank's surgery. He didn't show up didn't start participating until training camp. And every other year before that, he was a quarterback. 3 years ago, he came in. He said, "I've lost weight." The year he was competing for James Winston, I lost weight and I spent all my offseason training on quarterback. I'm going to go all in to win the quarterback job. Last year, he comes back and he's like, "I've gained weight because I'm going to try to become a tight end and I'm going to block defensive ends." Well, this year he said, "I've kept my same weight. I'm keeping my same role. We have 17 games of tape to look at last year. This worked. This didn't work. Let's keep doing this." He said it's the first year they're building off what they did last year. He's got a role, and he said that he wants to add to that role, but he's got a baseline role. There has never been this level of consistency with Taysom Hill. So all signs point to it should be. Even though he's about to be 33, it should be his best season yet with this offense.
I hope. It shouldn't be as hard as it seems to be. Just get him the ball, give him a role, have him do things at work, and that's it. Like, it just doesn't seem like it should be. I don't get it. Like, I just don't. I don't understand why it was so hard last year. They seemed to figure it out as the season went on. But even the talk about going to, like, tight end, well, he averaged 6 yards a carry. Why is that the thought process? Why not try to find ways to just put the ball in his hands and go with that? But hopefully whatever they do, there is just a clear, decisive path to that, and they just drive down it for the whole season.
I would start by flipping back to what's the ideal situation for him. Until defenses prove they stop it, every time it is 3rd and 3 or shorter, I want him on the field. You can use him as a decoy.
Yeah.
Or a lead blocker.
He should never be on the sideline if it's 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1. Never.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, too, that Taysom also said they're building off of last year, because ever since he's been moved into this role, how many times do we still hear him saying he wants to compete for the quarterback job, wants to still be a starting quarterback in the NFL? So to me, it seems like maybe he has accepted it and might become more comfortable or happy in this role, because to me, he didn't seem like I don't want to say happy, that's probably the wrong word, but he just didn't seem like he loved the situation that he was in.
No, he was pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was clear he was pissed. And I think it was partly, you know, I don't think he had clarity on what he was going to
Right.
do. But yeah, the quarterback thing, like the ship has sailed. Just it's gone. It's gone. The boat's off the dock. It's over. You know, that's just let it go.
You say that, but then the Rams game last year, it was Andy Dalton the first series, Taysom Hill for the second series, Dalton third series, Taysom Hill fourth series. And it was kind of working.
Yeah, but that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine as like, you know, a sprinkle. Yeah, but is an identity. No.
Do we think Derek Carr is going to be okay with that? Taysom Hill coming in every once in a while?
He's going to have to be. He's going to have to be. But I think he has the right mentality.
All right.
I think Derek's a team guy.
Here's always been my defense. There's every time Taysom Hill carries the ball this year, especially when on the rare occasions where he gets stopped for 0 or 1 yards, which happens to every running back in the league, people are going to be like, stop doing this, end this experiment, it's whatever. He's not really that different than handing it to a running back.
Yeah.
If you get mad when Taysom Hill goes in at quarterback and runs the ball, then you should get mad every time Derek Carr hands the ball to Jamal Williams. Like, it's a running play, okay? So, like, the quarterback will throw on half the plays and someone will run on half the plays. If Taysom's the one running the ball, that's a good running play.
Yeah, here adding to that too, if you are someone that's going to argue about, oh, it's too predictable every time he comes on, why did they do that? Like the one time in a game where he gets stopped for like 1 yard on a run, then don't complain when he throws the ball because that's an unpredictable thing. And I would just tell you, like, go watch the film and watch what happens to the safeties before he throws the ball and after he throws the ball. There's a reason they do it. So, you know,
he had a 60-yard run. He had a
yeah.
57-yard run. I mean, if a running back was doing that with less than 100 carries a season, everybody would be screaming, play this guy more, play this guy more. But the rules are different for him, and I get why.
The only time I would allow the complaints was when Drew Brees was the quarterback and he was having MVP caliber seasons, and sometimes it'd be like, well, damn, like you have Drew Brees, like stop. Like I understood that argument, but it's like,
but
okay.
Even then, I was always like, in my mind, bringing Taysom Hill out for 3rd and 1 is the same as having Drew hand it to Latavius Murray on 3rd and 1. You are taking the ball out of Drew Brees' hands in either situation.
No, I agree. But prime Drew and Alvin, like, okay, make that work.
Yeah.
People that said that, I always liked the Taysom stuff. I still do. I think a lot of it makes sense. But when those arguments were being made, it was kind of hard to be like, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees, why can't you get it done with them guys? But, yeah.
Hey, we'll get more answers. Training camp's around the corner. I cannot wait to be back out there. I don't know if I'm necessarily ready to be back out there and sweating, but I'm excited to be back out at training camp. Now what, just 2.5 weeks away?
Yeah, give me all of it, the heat, all of it. Yeah, turn it up. I'm ready. I'm good to go. Let's hit it and get it rolling.
Yeah, and we will be continuing to look. There's no off season here for us. We're going to continue to push out the shows. Mike and Nick are going to continue to push out articles. Look, if you like what we're doing, be sure to like and subscribe on all of our platforms, on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. And as always, send us your tweets of the day, your questions of the day. We love answering those on the show, which are now going to be presented by some sponsors. But for now, we'll see you guys next time.